Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, the first book of the Ancestor. I had never read anything by Mark Lawrence before. I had been interested in getting into his works as I've seen some of his covers online, and I've seen people talk about them, and I've seen book reviewers review his books. And so I was interested, but never purchased his books until I saw the whole Book of the Ancestor trilogy in mass market paperback for incredibly cheap at my local bookstore. And they all matched, nice spines go together, the books go together, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get the trilogy, I'm gonna read it, and I'll have fun with it, I'm sure. And so I was really interested in it, to the point that I only announce my monthly TBR like the month it happens. I only announce my January TBR in January, my February TBR in February, and so on. However, I had planned, I put out my books on my shelves several months in advance, 3-4 months in advance, and I had books 2 and 3 on the shelves because I was really interested in them, and I thought that they were really short, so I would breeze through them. And I've done this with other book series before, where I've bought all the books together before reading any of them, and I've planned to read all of them really fast and had a blast. I've done that before, I've had a blast with it. I tried that here. It did not go well. I read the first book, Red Sister, and I did not like it at all. And I'm really sorry to say that, because I wanted to like the book, because it had some interesting ideas. There are several ideas in this book that I think could be executed well. But I in no way had an enjoyable time reading this book. It felt the first book in a while that it felt like a chore to read. I felt like I was doing it because of my job, not because I wanted to read the book and have fun, which is really sad. The book has... The book, I would say, has two primary influences, and I'll talk about those in a second. But the book is about this girl named Nona, and Nona is kind of accused of murdering someone when she's like a 10-year-old girl, when really she didn't murder him, and B, it's not really her fault because he was beating another girl up. And so she is sentenced to death, and she's about to be executed, and this nun comes in and basically absconds with her and takes her to this convent. And this is not a traditional nun and convent like you'd see in the Catholic Church. This is a convent where they train girls to be killers. They train them in magic, and they train them to be killers. And they serve someone, their god, who they believe is called the ancestor, and there's all this political setup kind of as well. But Nona joins this convent and has to go to school in this convent, and is raised up to become one of the 4 sisters. They have the Red Sister, the Gray Sister, and Holy Sister, which ironically, 3 of those 4 names are the names of the trilogy. You have Red Sister, Gray Sister, and Holy Sister, which each book gets successively shorter by about 75 pages. I thought that was a very interesting fact. Anyway, and also I will say this book has really small print. I don't know why they decided to go that route, but compared to all the other books I normally read, this is incredibly small print. Anyway, back to the book review. This book has 2 primary influences. The schooling element, which is the primary thing of the book, really has a lot of vibes of how the students deal with the teachers and the course load and the magic. Reminded me of Harry Potter, obviously. But the book has darker elements and the darker world building, and also the way that the magic works with the nuns. It's all female school. The way that the women have power really reminded me of something like the Bene Gesserit from Dune. So I had these 2 conflicting ideas of Dune and Harry Potter in my head, and neither one won out in the proper way, and so the book felt like a weird tonal mesh of light and dark, a weird tonal mesh of seriousness and kind of silliness. And because of that, the book just did not work for me. It didn't feel entertaining. I spent the entire book feeling like it was a chore. I felt the entire book was none of the characters really stood out. You have the character of Arabella, who should have been more interesting, and she was written to be more, he attempted to make her more interesting, but she just wasn't. And you have the different sisters there who are teaching them. You have the most interesting character is Abbess Glass, who's the one who brings Nona in. But after the first 150 pages, Abbess Glass is pretty much non-existent. She doesn't show up that much, and when she does, it's very, very briefly. And she was the most interesting part of the book to me. You also have some of her friends like Clara and Chara and Hessa, and none of them stood out. None of them had a personality that really made me invested. They all kind of blurred together, and I just didn't find any of this interesting. The world building just did not work for me. The characters didn't work. The plot is really non-existent. When I read the pitches for books 2 and 3, I was like, there's a little bit more plot here, which I like, but there's really not much of any plot here. And the book's about 500 pages, so it's a pretty long book, especially with how small the font is. If this font was the size of most books' font, this might be closer to 600 or 650 pages. And when so little happens in the book, it just couldn't hold my attention. And so I'm sad to say that I've taken books 2 and 3 off of my TBR. I do not intend to read them in the next several months. It is entirely possible I will pick them up again, maybe in the summer when I have more reading time, that I'll be able to blaze through them. But for right now, I'm taking them off because I did not have a good experience with Red Sister. I'm really sorry. If you loved Red Sister, please let me know why, because I want to understand why people enjoy this book. And this trilogy. It just did not vibe well for me. And I'm willing to give Mark Lawrence a chance, but so much of this book didn't work for me that I'm not sure he's going to be the right author for me to read. But let me know in the comments section down below what you thought of the book. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching. I'm sorry.